Good afternoon, everyone. Tim Goff here, CEO, founder of My Ground Force, and your host for the webinar series, Prosper During the FedEx Transformation, Learn to Think Like a Fortune 500 Executive. This is session 11 of 12. We have spent the past most of 3 months now talking about what's gone on in FedEx, why they needed to go through a transformation, what's that impact on TSPs, and then we've spent several weeks now talking about how you can prepare your company for this transformation and build some skills that maybe you haven't needed in the past to help prepare you and your company for the way ahead. Today, we're going to talk about strategy. And, we've kind of built our way here. We started with the fundamental principles of how to organize your business. And then we went through how to build a world-class business. What are some of the elements of that? We looked at metrics. We looked at technology. We looked at decision-making. And now we're looking at strategy. Of note, next week on session 12, we're going to talk about what happens if you don't change your thinking. That's been our theme of this webinar series. Change your thinking. You have to be willing to change your thinking in order to succeed in the new One FedEx. And next week, we're going to talk about what happens if you don't. But today, we're going to talk about strategy. So then, why strategic planning? Okay, well, if you don't know where you are or where you're headed, you're not going anywhere. Okay, so let's talk about strategic planning when it comes to TSPs. I wager that very few people do it in this market. And the reason is so many TSPs think they know what they need to know. It's locked in their head. They've never really ran a business before and truly understand the value of doing strategic planning. Larger companies are more likely to engage in strategic planning, not because it's more relevant for them, but because they tend to hire professional managers. And these professional managers understand the dramatic impact that a strategic plan can have on profitability and morale. Most companies engage in some sort of strategic planning. I did it in my TSP company, but look, I've been doing it a long time. I'm trained to do these kinds of things. Most FedEx contractors struggle to understand the value. We're going to talk about that. You have to understand the underlying psychology. We kind of get caught in a trap every day where the urgent nature, the chaotic nature of the TSP business takes precedence over strategy. And we kind of feel greater accomplishment by handling those problems every day without understanding that what delivers enterprise value, but might take weeks or months to complete, is way more important than your ability to decide who's driving that truck today. You are the AO, you are the CEO of a multi-million-dollar organization. You need to change your thinking. You need to act like a multi-million-dollar CEO. And the other thing to understand is what you've done in the past will not necessarily inform the best way forward in the future. Most small businesses are restrained for resources as compared to larger businesses. And they don't have people dedicated to these kinds of things. And so then they kind of have a lack of clarity. We talked about this last week. Lack of clarity affects decision making, right? Regardless of the size of your company, every entrepreneur should find time to be thoughtful about their company and the future of their company. I speak with TSPs regularly who are distraught and concerned that they might lose it all. The pressure on small business owners is immense, and a thoughtful planning process, can chart a course to a successful future. The more clarity you have, the less stress you're going to experience. One thing I found is that most entrepreneurs have a plan in their head. They get hit by a bus. The company has no plan. The only one that knows it is the AO. He thinks he's bulletproof. He's not paying attention. He doesn't understand the value of business continuity plans. He doesn't understand the value of leveraging technology to replicate himself multiple times. He doesn't understand the value of implementing a cogent, defined decision-making process so that all his employees make the same decision he would make if he were there. And he doesn't see the value in producing a strategic plan. Well, lack of clarity manifests itself in poor decision-making, and poor decision-making results in mistakes. And mistakes are very costly. I can tell you a half a dozen contractors that are out of business right now because they did not have a strategic plan. They made the mistake of piling trucks onto that unassigned rotation when the warning bells were going off, and they went out of business. They blew up like a bottle rocket. So strategic planning is important. When you make decisions in a vacuum and without sufficient data and context, the management team is going to spend a lot of time unwinding mistakes rather than execution, right? And the time spent planning is minuscule as compared to the time spent responding to mistakes. If you plan, you reduce the overall time required. It just works that way. If you've never done it, you might not understand it, but it works that way. The notion that we don't have time to plan is really just a rationalization. You could call it an excuse. The more time we spend planning, the better we are. We've talked about this in this webinar series. I've used countless examples of how scenario planning, okay, improves decision making and the execution in your company. But it also improves when you plan your strategy, then you're constantly focused and adjusting your course in the right direction because you've been thoughtful about it. You know, control the chaos by planning ahead. I'm screaming that at you out there. So many TSPs seek their counsel on Facebook. I can't say enough about, hey, Facebook is good. It's for a lot of things. But it's not the place to go to learn how to run your business, okay? So don't control the chaos by going to Facebook and screaming out there, help me, help me, help me. Plan ahead. You know, TSPs especially say they can't plan because, hey, it's a volatile place in the FedEx world. And it is. But the businesses that plan can control. And they are in a better position in this one FedEx marketplace. Having a plan for every single element of your business improves execution across the whole company. You need a strategic plan for growth. You need a strategic plan for your fleet. You need a strategic plan for drivers. You need a strategic plan for operations. You need a strategic plan for capital. Have any of you guys ever met with a true CFO, financial expert, and developed a capital plan for your company? I wager most have not. You should talk to me. I can get you hooked up with one of our folks, and we can get you a fractional CFO. It won't cost you a lot. And you get a true capital strategy in your company. This is the number one cost you have. We've talked to you about how to manage people costs and fuel costs and maintenance costs. The capital cost is the number one. How do you source money? How do you source it at the right price? How do you leverage it to maximize the value of your business? How do you keep it in the right ratio with revenue? How does it look going forward in this economy? Should you wait? You need some help with that, I wager. Most folks do. You need a capital strategy. Look, if you don't have a strategy, think of strategy as your roadmap. And then what you do every day is your tactical response to what's going on in your environment and how you're trying to coordinate the tactical response to align with your strategy. Your job as the CEO is to make sure everyone knows the strategy and executes every day in alignment with the strategy. You know, a famous business coach once said, if you don't have a strategy, then business becomes problem, 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 crisis, crisis, crisis. Is that how it is in your company? Yeah, I bet some folks are nodding their head out there. So look, let's work today and let's figure out what you can do about it. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to pour a lot of information at you today. You think you've been drinking from a fire hose up till now. Wait till today. And I doubt I'm going to get it all done in an hour, just so you know. So if you need to pick up the kids or get the dog from the vet, you might listen to the rest of this on podcast, because I have a lot to cover, and I am not going to teach you how to do a strategy in your company today. I am going to show you why you need one and some of the tools that you can use to develop one, but only you can write your strategy, okay? And if you want my help, we've talked about how to get it, but pay attention today about what is a strategy, what's the impact of it, what are the fundamentals, you know, and here are some of the tools that you can use to kind of work your way through a strategy. And remember, you need a strategy for all the elements of your organization. And I'm sure you're going to learn some things today that you didn't know. All right, so what are the impact of strategic planning? Okay, look, at the heart of strategy are difficult choices. That's why you plan. Otherwise, everything that happens in your company is a reaction to the environment. You just take it as it comes, and it's wrong. Okay, if you talk to these contractors that have been around forever, they're really good businessmen. The fact that they've been around forever is evidence of that. But none of them have ever operated in the environment that we're in now. FedEx Ground has been in constant growth mode since 1998. Absent a couple years where it was flat, it's been constant growth mode. The entire U.S. economy has been in constant growth mode. It's not like that anymore. They don't have any more experience in operating in a down situation than you do. And if they don't change their thinking, they're not going to be any more successful than any other contractor. Okay, they need to change their thinking too. The FedEx they grew up in is gone. The FedEx Constant has evaporated. Okay, so you need a management team that's focused around managing risk, diversification, how to ensure that your company's value proposition continues to work inside the FedEx marketplace. And remember, you can't go outside FedEx right now. It's way better inside FedEx than it is outside in the logistics world. So you're in the right place if you want to be a trucking company. But look, even inside this benevolent dictatorship, you need to provide unique value. You need to understand what that is. You need to understand how to differentiate yourself. Okay? Look, I have a customer, a consulting customer and a My Ground Force customer who hasn't been a contractor very long. But he listens. And I've spent a lot of time with him on every aspect of his business. And he's in the Northeast. Well, he just won 4 runs in Savannah. You know what he did? He went into that meeting armed to the teeth. He knew exactly what he was going to say. He had planned ahead. He showed them how he runs his company. Here's My Ground Force. This is how we're organized. Here's how we do this, 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 and this. I had him ready to go. Brand new contractor, less than 6 months. He knew he had to compete. He's not listening to this thing out there. You don't have to compete as a FedEx contractor. That's not true. Anybody that tells you that is wrong. Because there were a lot of experienced contractors that put in for those runs in Savannah that didn't get them. You know why? Because my boy went in there and kicked their hind parts. He was ready. He had a plan. He had a strategic plan. He had an operational plan. He had a system of record. He had answers for all their questions. Do you have that? I ask this question continuously, not to beat people down, but to challenge you to change your thinking. You can't keep it all in your head. You got to run a real company if you're going to survive in the one FedEx. The days of waiting for the benevolent dictator to keep you moving forward are gone. It's gone, 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 gone. I showed you in metrics the practical impact of what happens when the transformation hits home in a small station and you lose 75% of your revenue. Look, you have got to be ready for these things if you're going to be successful. Okay? So, what is the impact of strategic planning? By doing strategic planning, you're going to get alignment. We talked about that just a second ago. What does that mean? You're going to create a strategic plan that unifies the team around a common purpose. Okay? It's not just we're going to run trucks today. Okay? I unified my team around a common purpose of being the biggest contractor in the state of Alabama. I started with 3 trucks. When I sold my company, I was the biggest contractor in the state of Alabama. We had a strategy. We had a plan. We knew exactly what we were going to do. The whole team was aligned to it, and we executed the hell out of it. This is going to be key. We're going to talk about that. Sorry, fat fingered it. Goals and objectives. Okay, do you have goals and objectives in your company? This isn't a natural outcropping or output of having an effective strategic plan. But do you have them in your company? Are they aligned with your strategic plan, or do you just have some goals and you just have some objectives without a roadmap? Okay, remember, the strategic plan is saying if you don't know where you are or where you're going nowhere. Okay? All right. If you have goals and objectives, you're improving your chance of actually getting where you're trying to go. What is your growth plan? My boy analyzed the markets and the competition, and he prepared for that. He knew he was David against Goliath, and he slayed him. He was ready. That is a recent practical result example that I can show you about taking all the things in this webinar series and putting them into action in the FedEx marketplace. Don't believe that you can just idle along and not improve your company, not be ready to be competitive. Because if that's the way you think, you are never going to be successful. You're never going to get a new run. The only way you're going to get a new run is if they ever bid a run out again and you had the most points. Okay, that's the union way that it's been in the past, but we all know FedEx has put a number of contractual levers in that contract now, so they don't even have to go down that process anymore. You're going to be standing on the side bitching on Facebook. You got to learn how to get competitive if you want to grow. Another output of an effective strategic plan is you're going to start to build a culture. We've talked to you about the elements that you need to incorporate so that you can build a culture, right? We've talked about the quality principles. We've talked about core values. We've talked about standing objectives. These are things that build a culture. They were all in my employee handbook. Every single employee knew those and read those, okay? So build the people, the processes, and the technology. Whoops, technology. We talked about that. If you are running a company today, I don't care if you're running a laundromat. If you are not sensitive to the technology impact in your industry and you are at the bleeding edge of incorporating it into your company, you are on the wrong path. If you think you can continue to be successful in this business using spreadsheets, my boy's going to continue to kick your hind parts. That's just how it is. Okay? You have to get in the technology game, and don't take my word for it because I'm an AI guy, or don't disregard me because I'm an AI guy and I'm trying to sell you software. I'm telling you what you need to be doing if you are going to survive. We use a McDonald's example. McDonald's is using world-class technology. A burger place, okay? You need to get with the program if you're not using technology. processes, people, and technology. You've heard me say that in the past. That's going to be needed to support your growth plan, and you're going to know how to do that. All right, what's going to be important is scalability. Now, some people think scalability is all for growth, but you better have a plan on how to scale back. Okay, FedEx may come through and optimize all the runs in your location, and you're going to lose 40 miles on each leg. We talked about that. Are you ready for that? You need to plan for it. You need to have a risk assessment. You need to be ready. We taught you in this webinar series about all those things. Notice that I keep referring to all those things we've already talked about. Well, this webinar series was designed to prepare you for this conversation, because strategy is where it all comes together. It's where you take everything that you've learned and how to analyze the market, how to build a culture, how to leverage technology, how to measure your business, how to make decisions. And you take those skill sets, and now you're ready to build a strategy, the roadmap for your company for 1, 3, 5 years from now, so that you excel and outperform. There will be no more accidental success in the FedEx world. A brand new contractor just went into Savannah and kicked their ass because he was ready. Are you ready? Could you have done that? If you want to scale, you got to be able to assess infrastructure to support growth, include people, processes, and technology. Okay? You got to work that together. And then KPIs. An effective strategy is going to include key performance indicators. We've used this phrase, if you can't manage it, if you can't measure it. And you can't measure it without command of the data. Quality principle number 4, manage with facts and data. I don't care if you don't believe it. I don't care how you grew your company to 100 trucks. I'm telling you, if you're going to make it going forward, you're going to have to do these things. Okay, so what are the fundamentals of strategic planning? Okay, number 1, include the right people. What do I mean by that? Well, often business owners are resistant to share information out of fear that will end up in the wrong hands. Yeah, I was talking to you. I see this all the time. It is important to keep certain key pieces of information in the correct hands. But look, if you are going to take your company where it needs to go, you got to build people you can trust. That means include the right people. Then you don't have a problem giving them the right information. Okay? If you're keeping a tight circle on who you have strategic conversations with in a TSP company, it might be just yourself. That's not going to get it done. Oftentimes, the people who are closest to the customer are the ones with the most information. We've talked about, if you heard me at the Route Consultants Expo last year, and I've talked about it other times, I talk about the gray zone. Okay? The gray zone is how to get work that's not contracted. The people who know that best are the people who are working every day side by side with FedEx, your BCs and operations managers. You might want to include them in your strategic planning. Okay? Sometimes capable employees are unwilling to share their opinions. Why would that be? Maybe you haven't built the right culture. Okay? Look, I am encouraging you to include as many people as you can trust in developing your strategy. Everybody can contribute. And maybe not everybody contributes to the people strategy or the fleet strategy or however you might be going about it. Or maybe everybody does contribute to that. But the wider the circle, the more success. Okay? Keep that in mind. Uh-oh. What's next? Gather the data. Okay. Look, I do a lot of studying to bring these webinars to you. I don't just present my idea to get you to buy software. Okay. I am telling you that the key to success in business is data. And data does not exist in spreadsheets. Okay. You need a technology plan that allows you to take data, add value to it, turn it into decision information, and use that information to make decisions in your company and to help you develop the relevant strategic plan. Having access to market data is the #1 barrier for most small businesses. Okay. We talked about in session 2 about what FedEx has been going through for the past several years. We had Matt Woodruff on. He did an amazing job taking you through some really key data, right? Most of that data is public and available to you. Did you know that? Are you leveraging that data? Have you gone back and looked? You know, there's other places you can get data. There's a wealth of free information. Look, if you're in Kansas and you're trying to develop a strategy, don't do it in a vacuum. Go read the Fed book for your area. What are they saying is going on in the macro economy? FedEx is a Fortune 50 company who's riding the ocean of the U.S. economy. So don't just look at FedEx. Figure out what's going on in the ocean. Is there some storms that are going to cause big waves? Or is everything smooth? Right now, I guarantee you there's some big ass waves out there, okay? And you can find out what those look like other than going to Facebook and asking, okay? Go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Look, there's a lot of low-cost tools out there you can go get. For instance, write this down, gutcheckit.com. How about that? Look, go check these things out. Get the data. Understand what's going on in the economy, where your business is. Why would you not do that? Because you're dependent on the benevolent dictator who is no longer benevolent. He's ignoring you. You don't exist. You have to do it for yourself, okay? I talked to you about running a division in a Fortune 500 company. That my division generated $125 million a year in revenue. That's a lot of change. And I operated globally. And I told you, I spent all my time trying to figure out people, processes, and technology in foreign countries in addition to the US. And part of that analysis was what's going on with the economic conditions in each of those locations, each of those continents. Now, I was on 5 continents. That's a lot of freaking work. It takes a lot of focus, okay? Are you doing that in your area? You should be. If you don't know how to do it, give me a call. We'll talk about it. But look, broaden your view of the world as it pertains to FedEx. Understand economic conditions in your geography. It's only going to make you better. Now, if you're going to go go create a strategic plan, you need to be ready to do some preparation. You're not going to just show up in the room and have everything you need and everybody knows everything and bam, 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 15 minutes, you're out of there. It's going to be a process. It's not an event. Each of my divisions had a strategic plan for their division, and I met with them every month on their strategy. And we made course corrections as necessary. And we began developing next year's strategy 3 months in advance, making sure we had everything ready to go. And next year's strategy was an outgrowth of this year's strategy. We didn't start over because it was January. We flowed into January because we were already 1, 3, 5 years ahead. Are you doing that? Don't tell me you can't do that. You can. You can do it. But it's going to take preparation. Remember, the age-old adage that applies to computers, garbage in equals garbage out. Look, everybody who's playing, all these right people that you have identified, they need to have assignments to prepare for this planning effort. This is going to take time. Remember what we talked about, though. The more time you spend planning, the less time you spend reacting. Have a plan to control the chaos. All right, now you got to create the right environment if you want to develop a good strategic plan. Creating a safe harbor. There are going to be AOs who are going to struggle with this. Okay, but you have to create a place where people feel safe about sharing their opinion, and having strategy conversations is important to ensure that the physical environment, maybe an off-site location, is suited to creativity. 4 gray concrete walls, not very creative. You might be able to, maybe you do it on the back porch at your cabin. I don't know, maybe you do it on your boat. But make sure you get the right people. Point them in the right direction. Somebody needs to gather all the right data. They all need to be prepared. You need to tell them what each one is not preparing the same thing. They're all preparing in their areas. And you're going to create the environment when they come in. They're going to feel free to talk, wide open, and you've made it easy for them to be creative with the environment you've created. And now you're going to build a plan. You know, entrepreneurs often have a lot of anxiety about writing a plan because they don't want to be bothered with writing anything down, because then they might be accountable to it. They want to be able to shoot from the hip. Okay? 3 years from now, the shoot from the hip crowd will be former contractors. They will be in the express lane to bronze and with no idea how they're going to get out. All right? But that's not going to be you guys, because you're paying attention. We're going to work together so that we all succeed. You're going to build a plan, and it's not that difficult if you do your homework. So the components of a strategic plan, and we're going to go through the components, but for instance, a summary, financial projections, okay? Really important. Financial projections. SWOT analysis, we're going to talk about. What are your factors? I just told you where to go get some of that data. Market competitive analysis, we just talked about that. A vision map, we're going to talk about that, and an action plan. All right? Now, what are you trying to do with a strategic plan? We're creating a plan. Maybe you have a goal. If you're going to build a vacation plan, you want to see every national park west of the Mississippi. Okay, that would be your focus whenever you're developing your strategic plan for that. If you're going to develop a strategic plan for your company, you want to focus on growth and value. Okay, growth and value. And we've talked about some of the elements of that, right? We've talked about that growth curve, or right now, the growth curve for the most part looks like this. And we've talked about that cost curve. Right, and we've talked about you got to create some distance between that growth curve, or that financial performance curve now, and that cost curve. That delta is profit. And when the market is flat or negative like it is now, you've got to squeeze profit out of your cost basis. You got to get value from your existing cost basis. And you do that by leveraging technology. That's how you do it. I'm not telling you that because I'm a technology guy and I own a technology company. I'm telling you because that's how it is done. And you need to do it. You need to organize around your strategic objectives, and you need to create an actionable plan. And of course, this is what you're doing, right? You're going to go through this process. You're going to create your strategic objectives, and an objective is worthless without a plan on what you're going to do about it. Remember core values? One of my core values, we will execute. I told my people, start walking. That's 80% of it. We'll course correct as we go, right? Blocking and tackling. Fundamentals are the key. It's 80% fundamentals, 10% talent, 10% razzle dazzle. And the razzle dazzle should be reserved for the CEO. That's what I told my people. Let me handle razzle dazzle. You handle talent and fundamentals. You got to have an action plan if you're going to have strategic objectives. Then you can gamify this thing, right? Don't make it a burden. Encourage engagement. You know, put rewards out there, bonuses, whatever you want to do, right? Figure out a way to make it fun on its implementation, because then you're going to get more folks willing to engage in it. Execute relentlessly. You might want to write that number 9 on a big sign and put it in your office. Execute relentlessly. It's the OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, act. Observe, orient, decide, act. Plan, do, check, act. ACT, act, execute. You got to have a plan, but you have to make sure you're executing relentlessly. Okay? All right. Remember, I said this already. Think of strategic planning as a process, not an event. Okay? Companies operate on all types of cycles, whether you're in a strategic planning annually or quarterly. It must be a repeatable process. As my organization, we reviewed our strategic plan quarterly, but I reviewed it with all my division leaders monthly. So we were constant in strategic planning mode because we're constantly gathering data, preparing, planning. We're constantly doing that. And we were constantly aware of what was going on in our various economic environments. Okay? It's not an event. It needs to become furniture in the room. And always, as a CEO, always on task. You are always on point. Everything comes in your ears as dollars. When people are talking to you, you are referring them back to the strategic plan, the strategic objectives. That's how you talk to people. That's how you build that culture where people are focused on relentless execution. And I'm telling you, if you do this, you will be successful even in this FedEx environment where people think we're not competing with each other. Yes, the hell we are. It's a smaller piece of pie. If you want your piece, you have got to compete for it. And now you have medals. Those who are successful competitors will be gold and silver. Those who are not will be bronze, and then the express lane to former contractor status. And then this ringing out process that we're going through right now is going to end in 2026. Towards the end of 2026. How do we know that? That's what the numbers tell us. We're going to start to see a little growth. All right. I'm telling you right now, gold contractors are going to be the first pigs to eat. You just watch. Are you ready to compete to get there? Remember, that metal thing changes every month. It's not a fixed target, right? If everybody performs better, there's still going to be a bottom 10%. What's silver this week or this month or this quarter or this year might be bronze next year. Do you have a strategic plan that's going to get you better? If you don't, you're going to slide. I used to tell my folks, you're either climbing the mountain or you're sliding down. You can't hang on the side. That's not how it works. If you quit climbing, you're going sliding down, and then you're going to be bronze. Okay. Now, what are the major components of a strategic plan? Hey, look, if you have any questions, shoot them into the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. Click on Q&A, send them in. We are going to go past 3 o'clock. I told you that from the beginning. So, you know, if you need to go, I understand. If you want to listen on YouTube, I understand. There's a lot here. I want to expose you to it. Like I said, there's a lot to show you, and we're not going to do your personal strategic plan today. So what are the major components of a strategic plan? A mission statement. Everybody's heard this before. Okay, a mission statement is an overarching, timeless expression of your purpose, your aspiration. What do you want to be as a company? What are you trying to accomplish? What is the manner in which your organization seeks to accomplish it? It's a declaration of why you exist as an organization. It's not just a cliche. You hear people all the time, mission, vision, value. All right, that's just because that's how it works in the corporate world. And if you're developing it and building the right culture, it will guide what everybody does, okay? What is your vision statement? It's a short, concise statement of the organization's future answers to what the question of what the company will look like in 5 years. What do you want to be 5 years from now? That's your vision statement. Okay? Value statement. Look, you might not have ever done any of this. There's folks that can help you. I can help you. But this thing is important. Don't just say, I'm too busy to do that. Or don't say, I just got 3 trucks. I don't really need to do this. I just got 3 trucks. I can handle it all myself in my spreadsheets. I don't need any technology. All that time you spend crunching numbers in your spreadsheets, you could spend developing your strategic plan. And in 2 years, I'm going to talk to you, and you're going to say, well, I just have 3 trucks. I guarantee you, just watch the value statement. These statements are enduring, they're passionate, they're distinctive core beliefs. We talked about our core values, right? That's a values statement. They're the guiding principles that never change. Integrity never changes. Be on it. And they're part of your strategic foundation, right? A SWOT analysis. We're going to go through this in detail. It's going to take some time for us to go through this because I want to expose you to it. SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, okay, opportunities, threats. Maybe you think you know all that in the FedEx world. It's not just the FedEx world. It's what's the economic environment. It's what's your financial condition. It's what is your capability and your people strategy. Can you get the people you need? We're going to talk about it. SWOT analysis is key. What is your competitive advantage? We're all TSPs. We don't compete with one another until they post a run, until that senior manager says, I'm going to test this new lane to see what happens. We'll probably run it for a year. You realize there's no rules on that. He can give that to anybody. The best competitor in that station is going to get it. If you're sitting around saying, I just have 3 trucks, I can do everything in my spreadsheets, I don't need a strategic plan, the one thing I know is that won't be you. I can't tell you the number of runs I got in the gray zone. I remember 1 year alone, I did over $1 million of revenue in the gray zone. And I won that away from another contractor because I was outperforming him and I was out competing him. And that station manager wanted me to do that. You want to be that guy, okay? Don't tell me we don't compete as contractors. That's complete BS. That's just guys telling you that who don't want to compete. What are your long-term strategic objectives, right? Remember, these are the major components of a strategic plan. You don't go into a strategic plan with these. You come out of a planning process with these. We talked about the fundamental elements. I mean, we talked about the need for it. We talked about the impact for it. Now we're talking about the components of it, okay? They answer the question, what do you need to focus on to achieve your vision? Simple as that. All right, what are your strategies? Strategies are the general umbrella methods that you intend to use to reach your vision. Strategy is shock and awe. And then we got a bunch of tactics underneath that on how we're going to go after the enemies, this, that, and the other. Okay? What are your short-term goals? You can't worry about everything 3 years from now. You got to do something today. You got to do something next week. You got to do something next month. Okay. These items come from the strategic objectives. You just boil them down into the organization. Remember, we focus on relentless execution. There should never be a time in your company when everybody doesn't know what's expected of them, how they should perform, and what result they should achieve every single minute of every single day. That is how you define relentless execution. Okay? And the role model for relentless execution is you. Okay? Create these short-term performance targets within the 1 year, maybe 2 year horizon. And they're going to be, you know, the who, what, when, where, and why on what we're trying to accomplish to turn this strategic plan into reality. You know, again, we've talked about relentless execution. So coming out of this, a strategic plan is going to have the action plan. It's going to have those specific statements on how a goal will be accomplished, like I just said. They're the areas that move the strategy to operations. Remember, we talked about green, blue, yellow, red. Okay, the 4 quadrants. You got action, you got data analysis, you got, you know, strategy, and then you got HR and things like that. And that all moves to green. You got to turn it into action because green's where the money is. You don't get paid because you developed a strategic plan. You get paid for operational execution. And what you're trying to do in a strategic plan is maximize your ability to make money. That's what the plan is for. Okay? And do that in the most efficient manner possible. You got to be able to measure it. You got to have a scorecard. There's whole books written on how to do scorecards. We're not going to do that today. But you need to understand what is your scorecard and how well are you doing, okay? And you need to constantly reevaluate that. You might get a mentor to help you with this, and so you have a third-party analysis of how you're actually doing and implementing your strategy. Otherwise, you're just going to be patting yourself on the back all the way through and see what a great job we did, and you've never left the pier. Okay? You have to be aggressive. You have to challenge yourself with some KPIs that are going to really track your performance against monthly targets. Okay? Don't be easy on yourself. Do what I taught my kids. Do hard things. Okay? This is a hard thing. What is the financial assessment? Look, if you're executing, you should see financial results, track, okay? It might not be, I did this and man, it did that on the financial side. It might not be that, but you should see some incremental positive growth based on your historical record and your future projections. Okay, this assessment gives you targets that helps you assess and predict the future. Okay, this gives you better control over your organizational's financial performance. Now, look, we talked about this. Most folks just back their way into a profit margin in this business. If you walk up to a contractor and you say, what is your projected profit margin for 2024? Most of them are going to say, well, you know, stop right there. He doesn't know. He didn't figure it out. He hasn't planned for it. You know how we know this is how you're supposed to do it? This is what FedEx does. All public companies tell the street every quarter. Here's how we did last quarter. Here's what our profits are going to be next quarter, next year, 5 years from now. This is how professional companies operate. Are you doing that? Did you predict what your profit margin is going to be this year? And you're constantly evaluating your projections like FedEx does every quarter, like every public company does, like really solid private companies do. Don't listen to the old contractors that have been around and say you don't have to do that. You're going to be in the 15 to 25% range. It's all good. And they're doing everything in spreadsheets and they don't use any technology. Okay, that world is gone. It's gone. You're going to see those guys sell. Be around to pick it up when that happens. And to be able to do that, you need a proper financial assessment so that you have a capital plan. We talked about that earlier in this conversation, so that you can be ready for when the opportunities, remember we talked about SWOT analysis, we're about to get to it, present themselves. Okay, it's 2:55. I'm going to go I'm probably going to go till 3:30. If those of you that have to leave us, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss you for the last half of this, or last part of this, I should say. Join us again next week at 2 o'clock when we finish this webinar series up. And then the next week after that, we'll be all together at the Line Hall Summit. All right, now we're going to talk tools. We're going to talk SWOT analysis. So what is a SWOT analysis? A SWOT analysis is how you go about developing the components of a strategic plan. Okay? Now, we talked about what a SWOT analysis is, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay? And so whenever you're going through a SWOT analysis, I'm going to give you the basic components of this. You want to determine what your objectives are, right? We talked about that. Okay. And then you want to gather your resources. Now remember, this is to prepare to do a SWOT analysis. You're going to compile your ideas, you're going to refine your findings, and you're going to develop your strategy. Oops, there's a typo, sorry. You're going to develop the strategy, right? All right, so a SWOT analysis can be thought of as quadrants. Okay, so when we're talking about strengths, all right, you want to think about, what does our organization excel at? What separates us from the competition? And remember, if you fool yourself in this analysis, you're just going to lose. Okay? Be brutally honest. Are you really better than the other contractors in your area? Are you? Be brutally honest, okay? Be brutally honest about your strengths and weaknesses and your threats. The opportunities, everybody sees those, hopefully. What are your strengths? What is your competitive advantage? Is it you have a strong brand, you're a gold medal supplier or provider every single quarter, you got a strong balance sheet, you got extra trucks laying around, you use every technology you can get your hands on because it makes you better, so on and so on, right? What resources do you have? What are the products that you have that are performing well? And you're like, well, we don't have any products. Oh, yes, you do. How is your operations manager product doing? How's your driver product doing? How's your training product doing? How's your maintenance product doing? You have products, okay? Those products come together to turn into what is your competitive advantage. Look, you better be building one. I'm telling you. Be number one on the speed dial. Doesn't happen by accident. You got to believe you have to compete. And I'm going to say again, anybody that tells you we don't compete is wrong. And they're probably telling you that so you don't try to compete with them. Meanwhile, they'd be willing to compete with you to the end. Okay? Relentless execution. Be competitive. So what is weaknesses? Remember, embrace brutal optimism here. Where can we improve? What of our products are underperforming? Are my operations managers underperforming? Are my BCs underperforming? Well, did I give them performance objectives? Are they not meeting those? Or did I never tell them what I wanted them to do? I did to them what FedEx does to me. I just throw them over the wall and say, figure it out, kid. Is that what you did? Look, weaknesses stop an organization from performing at optimum level. Okay, and they are areas of the business that needs to improve to remain competitive. Your weak brand, your higher than average turnover, high levels of debt, inadequate maintenance performance, lack of capital. These are all indicators of a poorly run organization. You have weaknesses you should not have because you have not planned. Yeah, boy, you need to be doing a strategic plan because you got some issues, you got some weaknesses. You need to be honest about them, and we're going to have a plan to fix them. What are your opportunities? What is your opportunity to favorable external factors that could give your organization a competitive advantage? Are you in an area where FedEx might be building a new station or a new hub? Do you think if you just continue operating the way you have that they're going to say, oh, well, you know, Joe's been here for 10 years. We're just going to give Joe some of these runs. Because my boy's going to come zooming in from the Northeast with a killer answer in that LIM meeting. He's going to take you out. This is not pretend. I'm telling you exactly what happened. I know at least 3 of my Ground Force customers that got runs in Savannah that are new contractors. Technology makes a difference. My Ground Force makes a difference in this market space. Station managers see my Ground Force and they're like, what is that? Oh, well, it's a system of record that gives me a business continuity plan. It's everything I do in my company. 4 runs, 4 runs, 4 runs. Because no one else is showing up with the right answer and the right technology. You don't have to believe me. You'll keep losing to my guys when they show up because they are focused on outperforming everybody else. They are taking advantage of their opportunity. So when they show up, you can believe one thing. They're ready to compete because they are focused on understanding what it takes to identify and take advantage of the opportunities. See, right there, what new technology can we use? Can we expand our operations? What new segments can we test? Okay, this is real world stuff. This particular analysis of the SWOT quadrants, I didn't write this. Okay, I didn't write it. Like I said, I get it from my studies. That's what the experts say in an organization. Number 1, what are your opportunities? What new technology can we use? By the way, it works in FedEx. I've already described it to you. Oh, and I can tell you exactly that it works. Okay, what are the threats? Got to be honest. Remember what I've said to you all along, and anybody that talks to me for more than 5 minutes are going to hear this cliche because we used to talk about it in every brief. It's the one you don't see that's going to kill you. So what are you doing about that to make sure that you see all the threats? By the time that missile's in the air and it looks like a telephone pole coming your way, it might be too late. Okay, so how are you identifying those threats? Are there some regulations that are changing? We know there's some regulations out there, right? We know there might be some potential changes in the environmental situation that might really make trucks another $20,000 or $30,000 more expensive. It's a definite in California. It's a likely in the rest of the country, potentially. There are very powerful lobbyists fighting on both sides of that. We're just going to be out here on our own, and whatever happens, happens. Are you considering that as a threat? You should. What about electric vehicles? We talked about that in the technology space. I think it's a low threat, but it's something you could talk about. What are your competitors doing? You know, if you're a contractor in Savannah, in that new Richmond Hill facility, and you've been in Savannah for 20 years, and you know, Richmond Hill opens up and you think you're going to walk in there and put your thumb under your suspenders and talk about, you know, I've been here, this and that and the other. These new guys that know you're there, they're competing with you. They come in there and take the runs. And you're left complaining on Facebook, what the hell happened? I'm telling you, you need to understand how to compete because other people are learning how to do it because I'm teaching them. What are the consumer trends? We talked about analyzing this, right? We talked about getting Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're talking about reading the Fed book in your area. I mean, there's a ton of data out there. We talked about gutcheckit.com. These are things that can tell you what's going on and help you understand what your threats are. And you need to have a plan for all of them. Okay? So I'm not going to swim to the bottom of the pool on every single thing it takes to do a SWOT analysis. I just want to introduce you to what is a SWOT analysis, what are the SWOT quadrants. And look, I've got, as you can see me flipping through here, I've got like 8 pages or 10 pages of notes on how to do a SWOT analysis. You don't want me to go through that, but I can go through it with you individually sometime if you like for me to. I mean, I've done SWOT analysis a long time, right? I've been doing it for a while, and I know this market space, but you need to understand this is one of the tools, and it's the primary tool very successful companies use to develop their strategy. Okay, questions in the toolbar. Okay, I got one more thing to talk about. Vision mapping. Tim, what in the wide world of hell is a vision map? And why would I want to do that? Yeah, why? Well, you have an idea, but you don't have any idea how to turn it into a viable business model. Do you know how many new FedEx contractors show up on Facebook and say, hey, they already spent the money. They spent the money. And they're asking questions. And I'm not trying to insult anybody. I am trying to give you an idea of what not to do. If you don't already know everything in that contract, you're not ready to be a contractor. There's a sample contract on MyGroundBiz. You need to know that thing before you spend millions of dollars. Do you have a plan for everything we talked about in that TSPA compliance program that we covered 3 weeks ago? So you have an idea, but you don't know how to turn it into a business model, but now you're a contractor. Woo, you need to get with the program, okay? A vision map can help. It's another tool. You might have already been through a SWOT analysis, and this might be a way to take your SWOT analysis and everything and put it into a map so that you can show it to other people in one view. You might not know what to do next because you're overwhelmed. Sound familiar as FedEx contractors? Yeah, man, that happens. You don't know the questions you need to be asking. These are good reasons to do a vision map. You don't really understand the dynamic of the business that you're in. How many of those do you know? Okay. We see this every single day. FedEx will not help you. Now, I have line haul in a box. I can help you, but if you just show up, write a check, then do your tractor files, you are now 100% responsible for about 50 different contract compliance components, and you don't even know it because you don't understand the dynamics of the business, and no one's coming to save you, okay? Your value isn't clear to you, so how's it going to be clear to anybody else? How are you going to compete for runs when you cannot articulate your value in the RFI? Or if your RFI looks like every other RFI that shows up because you got a guy out there that's got a template and he writes RFIs for guys, and you just take his because he's a theoretical line haul expert, and you're going to take his stuff and you're going to go win. My guys are going to kill you every single time because you don't know how to articulate your value. And you can't articulate your value because you haven't built your value. Okay? We can help you build it. Okay, what is the outcome? When you build a vision map, what is the outcome you're trying to achieve? Look, you want clarity around what you actually do. I mean, you probably say, oh man, we run trucks. It's a much more complicated thing than that, right? And we talked about clarity is number one in decision making. I even taught you a technique that you can use to gain clarity in your mind. I meant to ask that as a poll question, but it would be good to know how many of you have actually spent the past few days maybe sitting in your office with everything turned off and going through that process to help you get clarity. Empty your mind of everything, then reorganize the things that matter and put them back in. And then you're going to find 90% of your mind is now available because it's the whole mind is not troubled. You've calmed everything down. You have time to gain clarity. Look, this is not gimmicks, okay? I ran a 9-figure division. These things work. If there's one thing you can say about me, I will always tell you the truth, even when it hurts. If you don't want the answer, don't ask me the question. I am not misleading you. These things I've taught you will help change your thinking and make you successful. Clarity is key. Okay? Understand what you offer that's valuable. Even in this market where we all have the same contract, you can differentiate yourself. Those guys get the other opportunities. No spot. 0 spots. Well, almost 0 spots are assigned. And those are the most profitable part of being a FedEx contractor. You need to put some spots in your life. Okay, have that as a strategic objective. Figure out how to do it. I've talked to you a little bit about it. I can teach you some more about it, but that's an example. And in order to be able to get some spots in your life, you need to understand what value you bring to the table. Okay, look, one of the things you're trying to accomplish with this vision map is to make sure your core messages and your optimal strategies are easily communicated. If you show up in a LIM meeting with a vision map and you lay that out in front of that senior manager, you're going to blow that person away. And that's what you're trying to do in a LIM meeting. Trying to make their head pop off. That's how you win a LIM meeting. You don't go into a LIM meeting with an RFI that everybody else has done and you answer all the questions exactly the same way, because you will get exactly the same result. You'll be in that crowd over there bitching on Facebook while my boys are over here because they were prepared for that. And you brought them a vision map. Okay? And then, of course, you're communicating to internal customers as well, and you have a distinct progressive call to action on how you're going to do things. Okay? Remember, relentless execution. In order to execute, it's not just shoot everywhere, the enemy's all around us. That was true in the Battle of the Bulge. It's not true in business, okay? You want your guys to know what to do. So what does a vision map look like? This is one example of, there's a bajillion kinds, all right? And I can help you with this if you want me to, but here's an example. This is a really, really good one. It looks busy, but man, there's got a lot of good stuff going on in here. Okay, there's vision, mission, strategic priorities, strategic results, and how they all relate. You can see you got your objectives with the measurements and the targets and the projects. Woo. Man, this thing is strong. This is a template, but it is strong. It's all in one place. If you can answer all the blocks on this thing, you have one hell of a vision map. You're taking your strategic development process, all the things we've been talking about in this whole hour-and-a-half conversation, and you roll it into one view. And everybody in your company has this. It's on the wall of your office. Everybody has it as the background on their computers or on their phones. And every time you talk to FedEx, you roll that thing out on the table. So they know you are managing the hell out of your company and you're focused on everything. You will differentiate yourself. You will be maximizing your competitive edge. Don't tell me you don't compete in this space. Don't tell me you can't develop differentiating value as a TSP as compared to other TSPs. You can. I've done it. And My consulting clients have done it. All right. So what's the summary? A strategic plan is the definitive roadmap for the way a company will organize, execute, and profit. Is that not what you're trying to do as a company? It's not a charitable organization unless you organized under 501(c), which I know you didn't. Your goal every day is to organize, execute, profit. Organize, execute, profit. It doesn't happen by accident. You got to organize and you got to execute. And if you do that, you will profit. At my ground force, we like to say, automate, optimize, succeed. We can help you be successful. But even if you don't use my ground force, you can still take all these other things that I'm teaching you in this webinar series, all 11 sessions. Get some technology, get the system of record of your choice, whatever it is, but execute these things that we've been talking about, and you will be successful even in this market, this crazy transformation that we're going through. Look, if you want some strategy development coaching, you know how to reach me, support at mygroundforce.com. Okay, so questions. mygroundforce.com/consulting if you want to go to the website. So Paulo, do we have any questions? I don't have any showing up here in my WhatsApp screen. Are there any questions, Paulo? Okay, no questions. Either I put everybody to sleep or everybody left on the hour, or I confused the hell out of you. But at any rate, I have really enjoyed, as you can tell from my passion, on putting together this strategy development webinar. I learned some new stuff, and you know, this is really key to being a successful contractor. I have intentionally used some challenging language today because this is an element of owning a company in the TSP world that very few contractors believe is important. And so I have tried to use some challenging language in order to help you change the way you think. Okay? I'm never intending to insult anyone. I am always trying to get you to change the way you think, because if you do change the way you think and you align with where we've been coaching you, you will achieve new heights in your company because you will outperform the competition. And we are in a competitive environment. And look, when the growth comes back in 2026, and you have spent the past 3 years preparing yourself, organizing in the TSP world, understanding how to build a company, how to build a strategy, how to build an action plan, how to execute, how to measure that execution, how to observe, orient, decide, act, how to plan, do, check, act, and you got the circle going. And you perfect that in your company, and you just improve your performance. When FedEx growth takes off, you'll take off with it. But the other thing that will happen is your ability to execute inside FedEx, if you choose to do so, will give you opportunities to create your own authority outside of FedEx and grow out there, because the elements that will make you successful as a FedEx contractor that I've been talking about will also make you successful in the broader logistics market once it comes back. Hey, don't step off the boat right now because there's sharks in the water. Stay on this FedEx boat. But in the future, there will be opportunities out there when the economy turns around and the logistics market turns around. Prepare for that as well. Don't consider that not an opportunity. Have a strategic plan to get there. Okay, so that kind of concludes webinar session number 11, strategy development for the way ahead. Okay, next week we're going to talk about session 12. We're going to talk about why good companies go bad. We're going to base our conversation around a Harvard Business analysis of such things. And we're going to talk about some big companies that lost their way in a competitive environment They didn't quit working hard. They didn't talk about it, but they just had what we call active inertia. I shared that with you weeks ago, hoping you would go Google it, understand what it is. Look for it in your company. Hey, after we talk today, look for it in your competition. Because if those contractors are practicing active inertia, and lots of them are, I talked to lots of them, you're going to be able to take advantage of that. Okay. I've shared with you the story of a $7 million organization that was using my ground force and just killing it, but decided to quit paying for it, even though it was 0.5% of their overhead costs, in favor of keeping a huge internal team to do spreadsheets. Okay. There will be opportunities in that market, I promise you. Okay. So next week, we're going to talk about why good companies go bad. And you're going to be surprised to learn that a whole bunch of the things that we've been talking about would keep you on the good path instead of the bad path. Okay, tune in next week at 2 o'clock when we talk about why good companies go bad. Remember, 2 weeks from tomorrow is the Line Hall Summit in beautiful Irving, Texas, at the Irving Convention Center. If you haven't registered, please do so. You can use the coupon code GroundForce24 and get a $50 savings on your admission fee, your registration ticket. It's going to be a great, we're going to have a conference this year. We have better training sessions than we've ever had. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm talking 4 different times. I'm pretty excited about those opportunities. I always love talking to contractors and coaching contractors on how to excel in this market space. We're going to be there as well. Booth number 204. It'll be the biggest booth in the building. Stop by and see us. We're the only gold sponsor. We'll have a lot of people there to teach you the software and talk to you about what we've done and where we're going. We have some exciting things to share with you there. So again, thank you today for coming to our webinar series, Prosper During the FedEx Transformation. Learn to think like a Fortune 500 executive. This is Tim Goff. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great week.